Hi, my name's Louise and today we're going to talk about searching for a patient within Dawn. First of all, we're going to look at where to search for a patient. We're then going to look at some guidelines and tips for searching for a patient, and we're also going to have a look at some safety guidelines as well to ensure that when you're looking for a patient you find the correct one and we're not going into any incorrect data. So we're going to go into my Dawn system. And from the front screen of Dawn, we can go in and search for a patient using one of two options. We can either go into patient view, you can see hovering over the icon here or the word itself, or we can use the magnifying glass icon. Both icons take us into the same screen. Now this brings us to our patient search screen. The first 20 patients are displayed in alphabetical order. Obviously in your systems you're going to have in general way more than 20 patients, and that's why we have this search facility at the top of the screen. So you can see that we can search on things like patient's name, we can search on numbers such as unit number, MRN, address details, even phone numbers. What you might notice is our cursor is actually flashing in the last name, so that's assuming that we're going to be searching for a patient by default on their last name. Do bear in mind that where this cursor lands by default can actually be changed within the Dawn system settings. So if, for example, you would always search by unit number, hospital number, or MRN, we could have the cursor flashing in this field instead by default. We would recommend searching on at least two fields if possible, again just to make sure that when you're actually searching for a patient on Dawn, we are actually looking at the correct patient. Let's search on, first of all, for example, last name. Then what we can do is we can see we have one patient match. That patient is listed at the bottom. We can see their identifiers, so we can see the name, the unit numbers, address details and contact information as well. Now do bear in mind within this patient search option, it's also worth, if you're adding a new patient into Dawn, which you actually do from this screen using the new button at the bottom, before adding a new patient, do search for that patient in Dawn. Make sure they're not already in there. They might be inactive or stopped, for example. So it's a good rule of thumb, do check the patient isn't already in here before adding a new one. This will just prevent duplicate patients from being entered into the system. Okay, so if we have a patient where we know some details, such as the unit number or the hospital number, but we're not entirely sure how the last name's spelt. So for example, we might have a McKay and we don't know whether it's an MC or an MAC. What we can do is just type in a partial name. If I just put the last bit of that last name, which is K, if I hit enter on that, what I get is patients with a different spelling there. And Dawn will bring up patients who have that part within their name. Now, another thing to note is when you're actually looking at searching on the unit number, MRN or hospital number, when we pop in a number in here, what it will do is it'll display the exact matches, but it would also display any patients whose number starts with that. So for example, if we have a patient on Dawn with unit number 12345, if I put 12345 in here, it would display anybody with that exact match, but it would also display patients that start with that number. For example, this patient, which is actually 123456. It's just that their number starts with that string. So a good rule of thumb is do try to search for a patient on two or more fields. Let's have a look for a specific patient now and search for someone called Victor. So you can see I've just put in a partial first name, all of the last name. And here's my patient match. Here I'm going to scan through his details and make sure they're correct. I can see his name, his numbers, his address details, his contact info. Now to actually go into his patient screen, I can click on his details, or I can just simply click on the little blue form icon to the left. His screen comes up for me. Once you've gone into the patient screen again, just to make doubly sure, it is worth checking just at the top. Make sure that the details are in fact correct. The thing you want to avoid is to actually go into a patient screen thinking it's a particular patient, dose them and then realise it's not the patient you intended to go into. And another thing to note there is that as well as using this patient view of the front screen of Dawn, say for example I'm in another area of the Dawn system and a patient calls and I need to actually search for a patient on Dawn, I don't really want to close out all of my screens to come back to this patient view, and that's why we've added the patient search button up at the top left. So this means that wherever you are in Dawn, if you need to search for a patient, you can do that. Let's say that I'm in the report section. I need to search for a patient on Dawn. All I need to do is hit that option at the top left, and this takes me straight to the screen we've just looked at. I can find my patient and click on the record, and I have that patient screen open. I've still got my other screens open there at the top left as well, so once I'm actually done and I need to close out that patient screen, I can just close the tab at the top left and I'm right back to where I was before. For more information, or if you have any questions at all, please contact the support team.